Hi, Sean. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
First time we've talked with you since the Super Bowl, and just wondering what lessons you might have taken away from watching the championship won by a team that you had beaten 2 or 3 months earlier that, in fact, Jared Goff had a good game against.
Yeah, I think what stands out about that, Kevin, is the resilience of that football team. I mean, you think about how they responded from a tough game on Sunday Night Football against the Saints. They had the loss against the Chiefs, and they played their best football when it was necessary. And I think that's a real credit to Coach Arians' leadership. Obviously, Tom Brady has an amazing influence on that team, but I thought they peaked at the right time. They found a way to stay together, really find their identity at the right moments, and then they played their best when their best was required. And you look at that sequence at the end of the half against Green Bay, just finding ways to win football games, make the crunch time plays. I thought really just from a coaching perspective, they did an outstanding job of being able to adapt and adjust their philosophy. You saw some of the things that Coach Bowles did defensively that really minimized some of those great offenses that they played, and really impressive. And you see the impact that a guy that's won, that's done it, that people can look to and say, hey, this is what it looks like for him to win his seventh. Nothing but respect for Tom Brady, and you kind of just sitting there in awe. And at this point, I don't think you can say surprise, but you just want to say hats off to you for another job well done.
And then one more, you've made it pretty clear that adding explosiveness to the offense is a priority for this offseason. As you sit here now, beyond anything that potentially could involve quarterbacks, what do you need to do? What do you need to add? What do you need to change to accomplish that?
I think it's guys that can make things happen with the ball in their hands, Kevin. Certainly, and I know we talked a lot about it throughout the season of, plays down the field. I think there's different ways of creating it, but it's a collaboration of, certainly I've got to do a good job of giving us opportunities, and then the players are the ones that end up making it come to life. And so that's always going to be a big part of it. I think when you have to go 12 and 15 play drives consistently, your margin for error is so small. The level of competition is just so great that you've got to be able to find ways to continuously create explosives, give yourself a little bit of margin for error, that it's not always taking that many plays to produce points in this league. And that's definitely, I think any good offense, anyone that's at the upper echelon of the league, that's usually something that you can probably check the box on. And I think that's something that we've definitely got to do a better job of starting with me this next season.
Nick.
Hey, Coach McVay. Want to ask you this: how imperative is it to have the coaching experience and the defensive brilliance of Raheem Morris on the coaching staff this year? And also, where do you want to see this coaching staff go to as far as the level of elevation?
Yeah, Raheem is a special coach. I think when you guys got a chance to speak with him, or anybody that knows Raheem, my dad says it best about Raheem: he has a zest for life. You never leave Raheem Morris not feeling better about yourself. But the capacity, the command that this guy has, I think the charisma and the presence, when you're looking at what you're looking for from a coach, he checks all the boxes. He has an incredible ability to communicate and to relate to so many different types of people. I think he can help them reach their highest potential. Even just watching the way that he's leading these staff meetings with the defensive coaches, where a couple new faces and then a lot of continuity from the previous staff that did a great job. There's a real connection and a collaboration. Guys are enjoying doing football together. And I think that's a huge credit to Raheem and his leadership. I think the players are going to love really working with him, what he brings. He's been a big brother in a lot of ways to me, from our relationship dating back to even Tampa and when we worked together in Washington. And so many of the things that I know, especially from the defensive side of the ball, is a credit to learning from Raheem. And I can't say enough good things, and how excited I am to be able to reconnect with him. And he's just going to affect our team, our building in so many ways. And you talk to people that aren't even involved in coaching, and he's already made an impact. And you certainly always feel when Raheem is in the room. And I think that's a great thing. And really looking forward to watching him lead this team.
And now that you've had some time to look back on the season, especially dealing with Cam Akers, how impressed were you? Are you surprised at any of his strides as far as his explosiveness and his level to really be able to absorb the offense and really learn the offense the way that you desired him to learn it?
Yeah, I thought he did a great job, Nick. And you guys have heard me talk about Thomas Brown. What a special coach he is. What a great job I thought he did of consistently pouring into Cam throughout the season. You know, really, if it wasn't for that setback that Cam had in the Philly game, I think, you know, that rib injury kind of set him back a little bit. You saw Darrell Henderson step up. Malcolm was really consistent throughout the year, but Cam hit his stride at the right moments. You could see he's always had a real and authentic confidence, but then as he's getting more and more comfortable for the different ways that we were able to utilize him, I think he can come alive in the pass game. I think he can continue to play at a high level. Really, I think he's an every down back. I think he's a special player. And I think that's a real credit to Cam, but also Thomas Brown's leadership and just pouring into him day in and day out, him being receptive to that. And then you see the benefits and how much it kind of came to life towards the latter part of the season. And we expect him to pick up where he left off.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it, Nick.
Claudia?
Sean, have Matthew Stafford and Zach Robinson spoken to each other yet? How well do you expect them to work together?
Hey, Claudia, he can't answer that question, just like I was saying. Any
Oh,
questions?
I am so sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Never.
Okay,
I missed that. Sorry.
no problem. Jordan?
Hey, Sean, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, Jordan?
Good. This isn't a trade question, okay? So,
Go
but
ahead.
okay.
Yeah, let's see.
All right. So over the last several years, in terms of Jared, how did your assessment of him change from the time when he got the contract until this past off season? And what other factors changed around him in that sense?
Yeah, wow. Here's what I would say, Jordan. I think that's a really tough thing to answer. What I think is important to make sure that I at least want to mention is the amount of good things and you know, really great leadership that he provided since I got here as a head coach. You know, there's been a Super Bowl appearance, there's been a conference championship win, there's been 2 division titles, there's been 3 playoff wins that he was an intricate part of. There's been 3 playoff appearances. And so what I'd rather focus on are the things that I think he did a great job of establishing himself in this league, the way he handled himself consistently day in and day out. And all I can do is just be appreciative of that. And, you know, that's kind of what I would say on Jared.
And then just as a pivot follow-up here, what led to parting ways with Aaron Cromer?
Yeah, there was, it was a mutual conversation. Coach Cromer has been a very, very valuable part. I've really enjoyed working with him over the last 4 years. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with Zach Cromer, who's really developed into a really nice coach. And Coach Cromer, you know, the development of our offensive line, really helping us establish the way that we've operated offensively. I think that's well documented, and he did a great job for us for these 4 years. And now we are excited about the opportunity for Kevin Carberry to lead that group. And he's a guy that I have worked with before, been really impressed. He's been mentored by some really special coaches, and then seeing what he's done and the growth that he's experienced with the 3 years that he spent at Stanford. You talk about with Coach Shaw leading the way, doing football at a high level, some of the things that you see reflected on their tape, the different ways that they were able to attack people running the football, how they protected, how they were able to screen people, really was impressed. And then when you get a chance to spend some time with him, and it was really a gauntlet, the interview that we put him through, and he got exposure to all of our staff, and he handled himself really well. And I think he's going to do an excellent job leading that group up front, and guys will be excited about working with him.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Stu?
Hey, Sean, going back to the coaching staff for just a second. Eric Henderson, he's the run game coordinator now. Is that, I'm assuming that's him taking over Aaron's previous run game coordinator duties. And then I know that Ejiro and Wes are both pass game coordinators. Are those roles strictly focused on their respective side of the ball, or will they be collaborating?
Yeah, that's a good question, Stu. So, you know, really touching on a couple things. The coaches that we have that have been in-house that are remaining here, that are getting opportunities for growth. I think starting out, you look at Thomas Brown assuming the assistant head coaching role, and I could go on and on about him, what he's meant to me, going back to our relationship, even competing against one another in high school. But he's got such a refreshing security about himself, ability to command the room, communicate. I think what I've always appreciated about our interaction in the last year that we've spent together, he's always going to tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. And sometimes that's hard to find as a head coach. He's very decisive, but then he's also open-minded, and he's got just such a great grasp of this game and a great ability to relate to people, to bring out the best in his group. When you see what he did with the running back group in particular last year, so he's going to do a great job assuming more responsibilities there as a great leader of this football team. Looking at the defensive side of the ball, really every single coach that is still here is really receiving a promotion or more responsibilities. You know, you talk about Eric Henderson, what he's done over his first 2 years with the defensive line, helping Aaron continue to be at the top of his game, continuing to get better. You watch the way that he handles Aaron. I think Aaron can talk to you guys about how much he respects him. Watching what even a Michael Brockers has done under Coach Henderson's leadership and guidance, where I think you're seeing him continue to take his game to a higher level. Then you see the development of guys like Sebastian Joseph Day. And so I think that run game coordinator, he'll really head up a lot of the front mechanics, the different things in terms of how we want to defend people in some of those rundowns is going to be a real big deal. And it's a real credit to what he's done. Ejiro, Coach Evero, taking over as, leading the whole back end, assuming the pass game coordinator roles, where he'll really work in unison with Chris Shula on the coordination of the back seven and how we want to defend people really in all parts of the pass game. But really the coverages aren't he's looking at that pack seven, but that's not exclusive. I think you want to always have all three levels tied in. It's a credit to what he's done, his development as a coach. And then Chris Shula oversee all of the linebackers. But what's really unique about it is it also provides an opportunity for Thad Bogardus to take a step in the right direction, being able to have chances to oversee some of the outside on the field in those meetings if Chris is with the inside group, and then being able to add Marcus Dixon to work with Eric Henderson will be a big addition. He and Eric have a previous relationship, and he's got a special story. He's a special person. Really being able to get to know him has really been enjoyable over the last couple of weeks. And then Jonathan Cooley, who I think is another young, sharp, up-and-coming coach, has a great command of the game, working as the assistant secondary coach, where he was kind of a quality control defensive assistant last year. And so I think when good things happen, when you're as good as we were on defense, Brandon gets a head job, you're able to bring an amazing leader like Raheem in and then keep a good amount of continuity so that everybody takes a step in the right direction. That's pretty special. And that's why I'm so excited about that group. And then going to the offensive side of the ball, when you look at Wes, being able to assume what Shane's previous role was as the pass game coordinator, I think it's just a reflection of the caliber of coach that he is, the command that he has on all 11 offensively and the different ways that we want to be able to attack people. And I think he and Kevin O'Connell will really work well together, figuring out the best ways to attack people specifically through the air.
Gary? Go ahead, Gary.
Okay. Hey, Sean,
Yes.
back in June of 2019, which wasn't too long ago, you had said as long as you're fortunate enough to be in the role that you're in, that your hope was that Jared Goff would be stuck with you for a long time. And then you guys subsequently guaranteed him $110 million to be your quarterback. What changed? And not specific to the trade, but what changed in your mind and in the organization's mind regarding Jared?
Whew. I don't know that really a lot changed. I mean, there's just so many things that have taken place since then, Gary. I think what I would say that I've learned over the last handful of years is by the day, and you probably want to be careful making blanket statements when you can't predict the future. And so, again, all I can go back to, just like what Jordan asked earlier, Gary, appreciation for the times that we did have, and wishing him nothing but the best moving forward.
Okay. Jared has said that it became increasingly clear that he wasn't wanted, but he couldn't put a finger on when that happened. That was kind of a mystery to him. So Can you expand on that? And also, have you had any conversations with Jared, since the end of the season in regard to this?
I have, yeah. I think, Jared and I had a lot of conversations. We had one that, I want to keep that between myself and Jared. But again, I don't want to get into the specifics of those types of things. But when you look back on the 4 years that we did have together, there's a lot of times you can smile on. And I would say there's a lot of things that, when I self-reflect, I certainly wish I was better for him in some instances. And those are things that I think you have to acknowledge, move forward, and make sure that you learn from every mistake that you make. And certainly I'm not going to run away from the things that I could have been better for him as a leader and as a coach. But there was a lot of really good things that occurred from 17 and on that I think we can eventually really have a much better appreciation for. And we have had good conversations that were healthy, and I think we were able to both communicate open and honestly with one another. But those details I'd prefer to keep between us.
Okay, and finally, I know all coaching searches are different in terms of how you're going to put your staff together, but do you interview Joe Barry or Aubrey Pleasant or Ejiro or any of your other defensive coaches before you decided to hire Raheem?
That's a good question, Gary. I think when you're currently on a staff, you're almost interviewing every single day for opportunities. And all those guys that you mentioned are phenomenal coaches. And it's not because they're not capable, and I didn't think that they couldn't be unbelievable defensive coordinator for the Rams. It just so happened that you got a chance to reconnect with Raheem Morris. And so I think you see it reflected in all the opportunities. Aubrey's going to do a great job. I mean, you guys have seen when you've come out to practice, the charisma, the presence, the ability to communicate with the players, the energy that he brings. Aubrey and I have a long-standing relationship going back to our days as really young coaches. We're still young coaches, but really young coaches in Washington. It was amazing to be able to bring him and, to have him come here with me in 17 and watching his growth. And I think he's going to do a phenomenal job as the pass game coordinator in Detroit and add a huge amount of value to them. You see Joe Barry going and reconnecting with Matt in Green Bay. I know he's going to attack that opportunity. I know how excited he and his family are. I got a chance to talk to him actually the other morning driving in. And, Joe is another guy coming from Washington, was the assistant head coach. We've had a special relationship going back a long ways. And he's going to do a really good job with those guys. And then with Coach Evero, Coach Evero and I got a chance to really work together. My first year in coaching in Tampa, developed a special relationship when he was working as a defensive assistant quality control coach under Monty Kiffin. One of his mentors was Raheem Morris. And so those two working together, even watching them collaborate on how we want to operate on the back end has been pretty special. But I think it also provided a unique opportunity for growth for Coach Evero to really step up, become a pass game coordinator. He got an opportunity to interview Packers defensive coordinator job, which I know he was really, impressive in his interviews from speaking with Matt. And so a lot of good things going on for all of those guys, but you interview every single day. Every day is an opportunity to continue to really challenge yourself to be better than you were the previous day. All three of those guys have really demonstrated that over the course of working with them, Gary. But ultimately felt like, getting Raheem in here was going to be what was the best decision for the Rams. And I'm excited about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Beecham.
Hey, Sean.
What's up, Greg?
Hey, not much. Can you tell us about Marcus Dixon, how you happened to hire him? He's had quite a story in his life. And was that Raheem's idea? Was that your idea? And how did it all go down?
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing story. It's a really unique opportunity to see people respond from some setbacks with a resilient mindset and mentality. You hear us talk about that, and I'll mention that a lot, when we get a chance to connect. But, having some tangible evidence where you're going through some real things and then you come out on the right side of it, I think is a real credit to the human being. This was Eric Henderson's, Eric Henderson and Marcus had a previous relationship going back to when he did an internship or really part of the fellowship program with the Chargers. And when we knew that there was going to be somebody to work with Coach Henderson, that was the first guy he wanted. It's important to me to listen to our coaches because I think they deserve and earn that respect. And I trust their judgment. And we got a chance to connect with Marcus, and it was unanimous when the defensive coaching staff and myself connected with him, getting a feel for him, what we were looking for from that role, somebody to come fit into the culture that's been established from those guys. And especially, I think, Eric has done a really unique job of establishing a culture in that defensive line room. The dog work that you guys have talked about, and being able to add him, I think he'll add tremendous value. But that was Eric Henderson and his pre-existing relationship, how we found out about Marcus. But it's a great story of overcoming some things, and really excited to see what he does for us in his role as the assistant team coach.
Then going back to what Gary was asking about some assistants who got promoted and some who did not, how much do you value having new blood and new voices in the room? Because we can tell that you enjoy, interviewing coaches, talking football, whether it's a Brandon Staley, whether it's, whoever it might be. How much do you weigh, this is a guy who I know can do the job, but also it might be beneficial to the Rams to have a new voice, a new set of eyes?
Yeah, it's something that you think about a lot, because I think it's really important to establish, especially when we've been able to have some success, Greg, the opportunity for growth from within. And there's certainly been those opportunities. You guys have seen that reflected. And then I think there's some rare circumstances where a Raheem Morris, who you've worked with, who provides so many different things of value, that kind of goes against where in an ideal situation, you're building, you're developing, you're able to promote and continue to grow from within. But then there's always those exceptions. So I think it is a good balance. I think sometimes being able to bring new people in keeps that positive pressure on the coaching staff to continue to stay up to date with what's going on, new trends, different ideas. I know it's been something that I get excited about because, it's a never ending learning process, with what's going on and how you can stay up to date and different ways of looking at things. And some of these new faces in here will provide tremendous value in addition to the guys that are continuing to grow from within. And I think when you look at it with where our staff's at, with the guys that we do have, I think it's a great balance. And I really am truly excited about watching that collaboration, watching the connection of those guys unfold, because if you get the coaches, the camaraderie, the connection is right, and then most importantly, those players, they feel that. And if we're all on the same page, we're going in the right direction, we're able to establish the right rhythm and routine and processes and standards with how we prepare, how we practice, and then ultimately how we perform. Usually, as Coach Walsh would say, that the score takes care of itself. And so feel really good about what we can control up to this point. And I think it's going to be absolute bananas when the league year starts, watching how everybody kind of figures this thing out with what the salary cap ends up being, and try to put together the most competitive roster that we can to work with these coaches, or really the coaches to work with these players is the most important thing.
Eric, and then Dylan.
Hey, Sean, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Eric?
Good.
Okay.
Hey, you're hosting the Super Bowl, at least they're hosting the Super Bowl in SoFi Stadium next year. What do you need to see different from the quarterback position so you're hoisting the Lombardi Trophy up in that game in the stadium?
Yeah, I would say this. I think, as a team, going back, you kind of just bring it back to being in that Green Bay visitors locker room after the game. What I think is so hard is that, when you fall short, or when you lose in the divisional round, or when we lost in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, what you don't appreciate until you accumulate enough experience to really apply tangible evidence is how difficult it is. And when you really say, hey, you start over, and, you don't just show up where you fell short the following year. It's so difficult to get yourself in a position to win your opener, to then follow that up by winning your second game, putting yourself in a position to win a division, potentially compete for a first round bye, get into the playoffs, win in the playoffs. And so there's so many things that we just want to take it one day at a time, be totally and completely present, Eric. But I think it's really all encompassing to coaches, offense, defense, special teams. Everybody can do their job at a little bit higher level. And if we do that and we continue to just build and peak at the right times, you give yourself an opportunity to be relevant. But kind of like what I was saying earlier with the Bucs, they peaked at the right time. I think they showed that they could handle some adversity that, I think a lot of people were probably counting them out after we had that game on Monday night where we won, then they lose to the Chiefs the following week. but they had a late bye. They did a great job of rallying the troops and peaking at the right time. So we're really just focused on what we can control right now, and that'll be an ever-evolving process as we're gearing towards whoever we open with and trying to really start 1-0.
And then one last question. You mentioned free agency. You have a lot of guys that are pending free agency that are important to your team, John Johnson, Floyd. One guy in particular, Austin Blythe, played center, seemed like he kind of grew into that role the last couple of years. How important is it to keep kind of that anchor, that group that you mentioned improved last year?
Yeah, he really has done a nice job. It's funny that you mentioned that, Eric, because we were talking amongst coaches and with Les and his group over the last couple of weeks. We talk about the importance of that center position, having the command and the capacity that you're looking for because of the amount of responsibility that you put on that specific individual with where the communication starts and he and the quarterback working in unison. Looking at what John Sullivan was able to establish his first couple years, then seeing Austin start to play in the latter half of 19 and then watching where he took it and ran with it last season was really impressive. He did a great job, and he's definitely somebody that we appreciate, we value. And I think there's going to be a lot of things that we've got to really navigate through as we're trying to figure out the best way to put our team together as we figure out what is that cap, what does it look like specific to some of the things that we're in the midst of trying to figure out. You even talk about restructuring some of the guys that have some of those bigger deals and where we can find some of that money. So there's a lot of layers and a lot of numbers that Tony Pastors is a lot smarter than me on that hopefully we'll be able to figure out to put together the best team.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean.
Hey, Dylan.
Obviously your first couple of years here, Todd Gurley was really kind of central to what you guys were doing offensively, and at the risk of just kind of oversimplifying things, how much of like what we saw, in terms of the decrease in offensive production just kind of comes down to, the diminishing of him as a threat. And how do you think you guys kind of adjusted to kind of working around that problem when you kind of, right, as you have time now to reflect on those last two seasons?
Sure. I think anytime that you can really be a threat where you're efficient in both phases, and everything, did center around Todd. I think especially when you look at the 17 season, Dylan, he was offensive player of the year. You could make a case that he should have been MVP, and he was really peaking at the right moments. But I thought he affected and influenced the game in the run and in the pass. And because he was such an efficient runner and because he was able to make people pay, well, then it forces and dictates different things that open up some pass windows. So I think it goes hand in hand. I think you did see some of the things that Cam was able to do towards the latter part of the season enabled us to operate. I don't know if you would say the same. I think you've always got to evolve, adjust, and adapt. And, certainly it's about winning and losing games. And last year in particular, when you look at some games, whether, I was just talking about this with the staff before we came in here, when you go up 24-3 against the Bears at the end of the third quarter, ultimately the goal is to win the football game. And so you might be a little bit more conservative. And what I'm interested in is how can we win games consistently, week in and week out. There might be a different approach, but those things in 17 and 18, Todd was a very, very big focal point, but you could also argue that Jared played at Pro Bowl caliber level as well. And that was a reflection of why we played so well offensively. And then, over the last couple of years, we're looking at, hey, how can we continue to improve? What's the landscape of the league defensively? But ultimately, as a head coach, my job is to figure out how we put all three phases together week in and week out and come away with that win, because there's no style points in this league. It's about winning and losing games.
Earlier you mentioned how things change, right, in regards to Goff. And I was just kind of wondering again, and how much of that was the players, the personnel around him changing, as opposed to maybe changes with him?
Yeah, I think here's what I would say to that, Dylan. I think the unfair narrative has been that some of our decrease in production is exclusively on the quarterback. That's not true at all. I think certainly I have a big hand in that. I have to be able to look myself in the mirror and acknowledge and be able to evolve, improve, and take ownership in that. I do know that the head coach and the quarterback are the ones that always, sometimes you get too much credit or too much blame, but I'm not going to run away from the blame that's deserved on my end. But what I do think is important is that, the narrative becomes, all right, oh, this is the outlet for why the offense wasn't what it was. that's unfair to Jared. And I think it's disrespectful to what he's done over the last 4 years. There's a lot of things. Football is the ultimate team sport. That quarterback position is vital to your success, but it's not exclusively the reason for or the reason not. And so there's an element that absolutely it's about the 10 around him. It's about, what kind of things are we doing to put our players in the most favorable spots? And when you go back and you watch, and there's a lot of layers to every single snap, every single play, it's not exclusive to the quarterback. And there's a lot of times when I'm looking at saying, man, I got to do a better job, or we do collectively as a staff. And then there's somewhere saying we've got to execute, whether it's from up front, tight ends, receivers, running backs, or the quarterback. That's what makes football such a unique game. But I do think that's what goes back to it being the ultimate team game, because it takes all 11 to be able to operate at an efficient level. And it takes coaches and players being connected and being on the same page.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Coach, we'll have we just got 4 more here. We got Weiss, Sandoval, then Lindsay and Maria.
Okay, hey Sean. First off, you're going to hit the under on the early projection, which you started here based on that. but hey, from your experience, when you acquire a veteran player, particularly on offense, who could really influence some things that you try to do.
This is a good way of wording the question. You're a vet, man.
I'm trying. I mean, how does it go? Because you are in your roster shaping right now, and you are in your philosophy building right now. How much does it go into what you are trying to do as a whole, knowing that you could be acquiring a veteran player who could really influence some things you're trying to do?
Yeah, I think it's always about a collaboration. When we have acquired those players in the past, Steve, I think the coolest thing is there can be a level of ownership and truly, it's the coaches and players on the same page. But whether you're talking about the Eric Weddles, the Clay Matthews, Andrew Whitworth, when he comes in, what artists I can't talk about right now, all those things are exciting. But until you can truly forge and build and develop that relationship, I don't think I can fully answer that question. Those are all things that you hope to project, but possible things that maybe we could talk about March 18th. I don't know, Steve, maybe then.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I'm good.
Smooth way of, you are the man, Steve.
Hey, Sean, going back to a defensive question, obviously Raheem Morris's resume speaks for itself and his relationship with you. But also Brandon Staley, I know you were happy for him, but that had to be devastating to lose him after just 1 year. Aaron Donald has one of his most productive years. How do you mesh those two, or is it completely different? How do you make sure you still stay the #1 defense with that change?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say that I'm not surprised at what happened with Brandon. He did a great job. He came in, made a huge impact, and I thought it was a great reflection of he and the defensive coaches and then our players ultimately making it come to life, being able to figure out how to navigate through some of the obstacles specific to COVID when you're making a transition with so many different things that we did schematically. So Brandon deserves a lot of credit, as do the players ultimately for making it come to life. But I'm not surprised. I thought that was the direction that it was going, honestly. And you knew that if he got an opportunity to compete for a job where guys had an open mind, that he would do really well because he's got a big picture perspective. He's got such a unique ability to see the game, both from an offensive and a defensive lens. He's got a unique perspective on the kicking game. And so that wasn't something that I would say I was shocked by, that he ended up getting an opportunity to go lead the Chargers. And so with that being said, really happy for Brandon. And, we'll hopefully if we get back to practicing and doing the things that a normal season entails, we'll be able to compete against those guys in some training camp practices and stuff like that. But with Raheem, being able to bring him in, I think what's so unique about Raheem is his wisdom, his experience, and also his humility. He knows, hey, there's a lot of good stuff that's been going on. So let me come in, with Eric Henderson's of the world. All right. Ejiro Evero, Chris Shula, Thad Bogardus, Jonathan Cooley, the 5 guys that were on this staff last year. Let's find a way to collaborate and then ultimately be able to build the best defense for the 2021 Rams, whatever year it is. I don't even know what the hell year it is, but that's what we're looking to do. But I think it starts with the leadership, Kurt. You know, Raheem is a unique leader. He's got a great humility about himself. You know, his ability to listen, learn, and then lead, I think, is a really special quality that he has. I've witnessed it already in these staff meetings. But then also, he's got a bunch of great experiences and big-time defenses or teams that he's been a part of where he can impart and have his influence. And that's what makes him special. And that's what I'm excited about seeing come to life with his leadership and the rest of our defensive coaches.
And just a really quick follow-up on that. When it comes to leadership and 7 new coaches, it's like you just added 7 new family members to your family. And as you guys break down the film and evaluate players and get ready for the draft, how do you make sure the culture stays the same, if not improves?
Yeah, I think it's always about connecting and really building and developing those relationships, spending time together, you know, being able to do football together, be able to get to know their families. Even when we got a chance to interview a couple of O-line coaches last week, being able to bring a couple of those coaches out where we're going to dinner with them and some of the fellowship that occurs in those moments. And so, you know, that time is the most valuable thing. And I think there's a consistent alignment of the values and the things that are important to us. You know, it's your families, it's your football. It's being able to continue to challenge one another in a way that's reflective of a healthy, competitive atmosphere and environment amongst our coaches, where we're trying to help our players reach their highest potential. We're trying to do it with an urgent enjoyment. And these guys reflect exactly what's been right about things here previously. And I think they're even going to build it to make it even more special than it's been in years past.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll wrap with Lindsay and then Maria.
Hey, Sean, circling back to Gary's question, just seeing if I can get any kind of further details. You said that there are places where you wish you could have been better for Jared. Are you able to kind of go into any more specifics of what you wish you could have been able to do?
Yeah, I think it's just the consistent and ongoing communication. You know, you pride yourself in those types of things. And I think I could have been much better about, you know, those real-time communications, you know, and I'm not going to make any excuses about it, but a lot of things, even some of the decision-making in games, you know, are you consistently putting him in the right positions to be successful? And so as a coach, as a leader, Lindsay, your job is to try to make situations and people that you're around better. And there were certainly some moments that you know, I know I could have done better really for our team in particular.
And then there are reports that Kevin O'Connell was blocked from leaving for potentially another offensive coordinator position. One, is that accurate? And 2, if so, what went into that decision?
Yeah, that is accurate. Kevin's a great coach. He's our offensive coordinator. He has a huge say and a huge influence on how we want to operate. And I think even more so moving forward. I was really excited about the opportunity to be able to work with him in year 2, continue to learn from him. He understands how valuable he is to me and to the Rams. And we talked about all those things, but I think it's a credit to the respect that he's garnered around the league. And, you know, what I would say is he's our OC, and that's why we blocked him.
Well, just one quick follow-up on that one. Only because when Matt LaFleur to call plays, like that was a move that you obviously said you want to see somebody advance and be able to call plays. Will Kevin have any kind of chance or like increased chance to call plays?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and those are things that you always talk about, Lindsay, but you know, I think each situation is independent. I don't think you ever want to pigeonhole yourself into, and really Kevin and I had a lot of great dialogue, and I'm always going to listen. You know, I'm not interested in losing a coach to go do that same role. And I'm not naive to the fact that the play calling and those things are very important. And, you know, when that situation came up with Matt, we talked about that. Kevin and I have had great conversations, but I would like to think that anybody that's been a part of this Rams building knows that there is an investment in us trying to help guys continue to grow. And if opportunities that they have outside this building don't exist in-house, then usually that's when we're going to let guys go, even if it doesn't help the Rams. And that's kind of been the approach. And so Kevin and I had great dialogue. I think I want to understand what's important to these guys. And that's where you listen and then you make decisions accordingly. But we've had a bunch of great conversations. And I would like to think that he and I both are really excited about the opportunities that we have moving forward, working with the offensive coaches, these players, and what next year can look like for us with him leading the way offensively.
Maria?
Hey, Sean, just to kind of expand on Kurt's question about bringing new coaches in, when you're in the interview process as the head coach, can you kind of feel that this is the guy that's going to fit into the Rams culture? Do you kind of know that when you're in that process of talking to them?
I think so, Maria. And then in a lot of instances, there are some circumstances where you're really saying, okay, what did the interview process really look like with Raheem Morris? Well, we've already worked together. You know who he is. He has a pre-existing relationship with so many of the people in our building. And so it's more about kind of talking through some things. Where are you at? Here's what we're doing, as opposed to the interview that maybe we did to be the offensive line coach. And so each situation and circumstance is unique to that. But I think you can feel, it's almost kind of like an intuition, and really as you get to know people, hey, is this a fit? Is it not? And all of these guys that are coming on here, I feel really good about the fit and how they'll really continue to just raise the level of standards and expectations that we have specific to, you know, how the coaches can influence and affect good stuff for our players and ultimately reaching their highest potential.